It wasn't unusual to get a call from Richard to come over and take a look at a book. We do this on occasion when he needs some outside consultation.
Convinced that the folio would be authenticated, Scott planned an elaborate party.
I brought a cake that had been prepared by Maître Chef de Cuisine at the Mayflower Hotel.
But his confidence wasn't shared by Daniel de Simone.
It didn't take me long to realize that the book had been stripped.
The chef suggested a rather anodyne lemon drizzle cake.
The preliminary leaves were missing, the leaves at the end of the book were missing.
Which had on it the first folio, Shakespeare, 1623, followed by a question mark.
This wasn't a book that had just been found in an attic and was all dusty. This book had been cleaned and prepared.
And we had a non-alcoholic party with the lemon drizzle cake. I was feeling very honoured, lionised and feted.
From my perspective, there was a problem with the situation.
De Simone's assessment raised serious doubts about Scott's Cuban claims. So where could this folio have come from? Needing more evidence to back up their suspicions, the Folgers' investigation switched from the US capital to the Big Apple. There, a rare book expert would provide key information about the folio's true provenance.
I got a message from Richard Cooter, who asked me if I'd come down professionally to look at what everybody was saying was the first folio of Shakespeare. I looked at the book, and within 15 seconds, I kind of knew what I was looking at.
Using data gathered in a census and published by Anthony James West, a world authority on first folios, Massey was able to eliminate all but 4 volumes.
Here was the list. The numbers were West 219, West 220, West 221, West 7, and I just took the measure out, looked at things and said, no, it's got to be this one.
The specific dimensions would narrow it down to just one possible folio.
And West 7 is Durham University Library copy, stolen December 1998.
One of the world's 9 missing first folios was stolen from here in Durham 12 years ago. It was just one of 10 rare books and manuscripts snatched from the university library on a bleak winter's day. Paul Whelan was one of the officers tasked with tracking down those responsible.
The theft was from the cousin's library, glass cabinet, books were in the glass cabinet, padlocked, and it looked like somebody had come along and forced the padlock and took the opportunity to take the books. Unfortunately, in this particular case, there wasn't any forensic evidence, there wasn't any CCTV, normal lines of inquiry on any crime of this nature. So trying to get it out amongst the international sort of art dealers, if you like, that these books have been stolen, and making them aware, really, that once they come in, somebody comes in with these, to contact us, and then we'd be straight onto the case.
But the items had seemingly disappeared into the murky and secret underground world of stolen artworks, and the trail quickly went cold.
When you're thinking about your career, you think, well, this is a case that I haven't solved, and it hasn't been solved, and it's quite frustrating, actually. You start to sort of think, well, are we ever going to get this back? But on speaking to the people within the arts world, they always sort of indicated that one day this book will turn up.
Could Durham's missing treasure be the folio at the Folger? With the US experts still unsure of the copy's origin, the quest to identify the book shifted to Britain, where archivists at the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust delved back into history to unearth more vital clues about the mystery folio.
So what we have here is the original returns from Sir Sidney Lee's census of the first folio. He wanted to compile a list of all known copies in 1902, and this is his list of all the people that he knew owned it. Unfortunately, it was also indexed, so I could find the Durham one and find it was number 67. So I then came and checked whether or not we had number 67, which we did.
Lee's study contained specific information indicating how Durham's copy differed from every other surviving first folio.
Is there anything missing? So we know that Ben Jonson's verses were missing. The title page and the last leaf have been remounted at some point. And then, of course, whether the pages match up. And in this copy, the pages don't match up, because in Richard II they say it's 23 to 43. In the Durham copy, it's page 45. So you can prove it from all these little differences that it was the right copy.
The evidence from Stratford was the final piece of the jigsaw that the Folger team needed to positively ID the copy.
The book matched every point that we could think of with the documentation that was provided. We examined everything that we knew how to do. We looked at the binding, we looked at the fragments of goat skin, we looked at the dimensions, we looked at the placement of the sewing supports on the spine, and in each case it matched the Durham Folio. A book was brought to the library that had been stripped, that for all intents and purposes couldn't be identified, and we identified it.
The question now for experts was who'd stolen it in the first place. Unfortunately, Raymond Scott couldn't provide the answers. He'd already mysteriously left Washington. With a suspected hot book in his hands, Kuchta called in the FBI. Special Agent Greg Horner was assigned to the case.
We had interviewed everybody at the Folger that had any contact with the book. We interviewed them, anybody that had any contact with Mr. Scott. We did our normal background investigations on who Mr. Scott may be. We weren't really coming up with anything in the United States.
Tracing Raymond Scott had become top priority, and the investigation into the folio's theft had suddenly gone global. Detective Inspector Michael Callan would head up the British side of the hunt.
We got a call into our control room from the British Embassy in Washington informing us that the stolen Durham Folio had been recovered in the Folger at Washington. They told me all about the details of Raymond Scott, who would inform them that he was a millionaire, selling the family business in Scotland of heavy plant machinery. His mother living in Monte Carlo, Liechtenstein connections, and him living in Cuba. From the Durham perspective, we believed that we had a stolen item from our theft, and our involvement was trying to trace Raymond Scott.
Scott may have left the folio in Washington, but unfortunately for police, he'd left few other clues to his whereabouts. Oblivious that a worldwide search was underway to locate him, Scott was attempting to broker the folio's sale.
So I telephoned Stephen Massey, and basically he says, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And I said, well, tell me the good news. He says, oh, the book that you took into the Folger Shakespeare Library is the first folio Shakespeare, all right, and a very fine copy. I said, fantastic. I had to pinch myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. What could the bad news possibly be?
I said that nothing would give me greater pleasure than to sell it at auction, but I emphasised, if I did that, I would be strung from a beam. Why?
He says, I think it's worth 7. I think there's a copy of that used to be at Durham. And I said, well, what, Durham sold it? Oh no, Durham didn't sell it, he said. It was stolen from Durham together with other rare books and manuscripts in 1998. This is all a bolt from the blue, this is all a bombshell. I said, how can you be so sure? He says, oh, I'm sure, I'm a world expert.
It's pretty unusual to have a stolen copy of the first folio come on the market. How dumb can anyone be to steal a first folio? Because it is the most documented book in the world.